The first time Maya Thomas stepped into that quiet, manicured neighborhood, she felt the weight of history pressing against her chest. It wasn't just about buying a house. For Maya, a young black woman who had fought her way through law school and built a promising career, it was about finally giving her family a place that reflected their sacrifices and hard work. She chose a home on a tree-lined street, with a wide porch and a small garden that she dreamed of filling with roses. But before the ink could even touch the paper, the Homeowners Association blocked her application. Their words were polite, wrapped in bureaucracy, but their meaning was sharp as glass. "We don't believe you're the right fit for this community." Maya knew what they meant. She had felt that tone before, the one that dressed up racism in the language of rules and regulations. For days, she replayed the humiliation in her mind. They didn't just reject her offer on a house. They rejected her existence, her worthiness to belong. She sat on her apartment balcony at night, staring into the city lights, anger burning quietly into determination. In that moment, she decided that if they believed she didn't belong in their neighborhood, she would make sure she didn't just live there, she would own it. What began as a painful denial was about to become the beginning of a revolution that no HOA board could have ever predicted. Maya had never been one to surrender. Her grandmother had marched in the civil rights era, her mother had fought through segregated classrooms, and now she carried that same unbreakable fire. Instead of retreating, Maya dove into research. She learned that the very HOA that denied her had been quietly struggling with finances, legal disputes, and mounting maintenance costs. Their power wasn't as solid as it appeared. With her background in law and her rising success in business, Maya realized she had the resources, and the strategy, to do something no one had ever attempted. She would buy. Not just one home, but piece by piece, she would acquire the land and property around them. She spoke with real estate brokers, studied ownership records, and waited patiently for opportunities. Every late-night phone call with her closest friends was filled with the same fire. "They said I wasn't the right fit. Watch me prove them wrong." Her first purchase was quiet, almost invisible, a small corner lot owned by an elderly couple ready to move closer to family. Then came a rental property, then another. Within a year, Maya owned 3 homes in the very neighborhood that once tried to shut her out. At community meetings, the HOA members began to notice her presence, not as an applicant, but as an owner with real influence. And yet, she said nothing. She only watched, smiled politely, and kept building her plan. What they didn't know was that Maya wasn't just buying houses. She was preparing to rewrite the rules of who truly belonged. Word spread quickly. Some neighbors whispered about the ambitious young woman buying up homes, while others openly questioned her motives. The HOA board grew uneasy, calling emergency meetings and trying to pass new restrictions to slow her down. "We have to protect our community," one board member barked. But beneath their thin arguments lay the same prejudice that had once denied her entry. Maya knew this resistance would come. They mailed her letters, citing violations that didn't exist, and tried to levy fines on properties she now owned. But Maya wasn't just a homeowner anymore, she was a lawyer, armed with every statute and precedent necessary to dismantle their tactics. She countered each attempt with precision, sending back responses that left their claims crumbling. Neighbors began to take notice. Some who had quietly endured the HOA's bullying for years found courage in Maya's fight. One elderly black couple told her, with tears in their eyes, that they had felt unwanted since the day they moved in, but now they finally felt represented. The HOA, once so confident, now faced a challenge they had never seen before. Every property that slipped from their control into Maya's hands weakened their grasp further. And with every passing month, Maya's dream grew closer, not just living in that neighborhood, but transforming it into a place where no one would ever again be told they weren't the right fit. It happened one spring afternoon, under the shade of blooming dogwood trees. The HOA board gathered for what they thought would be another routine meeting, but this time, the balance of power had shifted. Maya walked in, carrying a leather-bound folder. Calm, steady, unshaken, She laid documents on the table that confirmed what some had suspected but none wanted to believe. Maya Thomas now owned the majority of properties in the neighborhood. Gasps filled the room. The very board that had once denied her the right to live there was now looking at the new reality. She wasn't just a homeowner, she was the community's largest landowner. With ownership came authority. With authority came the power to dissolve the very HOA that had tried to exclude her. One board member slammed his fist on the table, sputtering about rules and traditions, but his words collapsed under the weight of her ownership papers. "You told me I didn't belong here," Maya said, her voice steady, her eyes unflinching. "Now this neighborhood belongs to me." In that moment, the air shifted. The residents who had suffered under the HOA's oppressive rules saw, perhaps for the first time, that justice could prevail, not through violence or vengeance, but through persistence, dignity, and unwavering resolve. The HOA dissolved within months, its power eroded beyond repair. In its place rose a community association built on transparency, inclusivity, and respect. Under Maya's leadership, the neighborhood transformed. Gardens bloomed without threat of fines. Children played freely without fear of letters on their parents' doors. Neighbors who once barely spoke to one another now gathered for cookouts and shared celebrations. For Maya, it wasn't just about victory, it was about rewriting the narrative for every black woman who had ever been told she was unworthy of space, voice, or ownership. National news outlets soon picked up the story, framing it as a tale of justice, empowerment, and historic reversal. But Maya never sought headlines. She sought healing. Standing on her porch one evening, watching families walk together under the setting sun, she thought back to that first rejection, that single cruel sentence, "You're not the right fit." Those words had tried to define her, to push her away. Instead, they had ignited a fire that not only secured her place but lifted an entire community. The neighborhood was no longer a symbol of exclusion, it had become a beacon of resilience. And Maya, with quiet pride, knew her grandmother and mother would have looked at her and whispered the same word, home.